Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, October 19th in the year 2021. And welcome to another edition of Tuesday with Thom, brought to you by the Best Girl Consulting Firm. I'd like to start off and pay a little tribute to retired General and former Secretary of State Colin Powell. Powell was a leader, a statesman, dignitary, and was the first Black Secretary of State. He will be remembered for many of the wonderful things he did, but also for the push for intervention into Iraq, which he later admitted was a mistake, and he stated a, quote, blot on his record. In early 2021, Powell described himself in this way. He says, "I can no longer call myself a fellow Republican. I'm not a fellow anything right now. I'm just a citizen who has voted Republican, voted Democrat, and right now I'm just watching my country and not concerned with parties." So we certainly would like to send that tribute to Powell. Over the past 14 months, Tuesdays with Thom has featured several authors writing about varied and different subjects, and we feature another one today with our G-list guest, Larry Thornton. Larry's book, Why Not Win, is a fascinating read, and so is Larry. Fascinating, that is. We look forward to talking with him today. Another upcoming author to TWT is Crystal Harrell, and her book, Crystal Clear. It's crystal clear from public housing to the Ivy League. As I looked back over the past 14 months and discovered that we had quite a few authors on Tuesdays with Thom. Some of them have been Peggy Allentown in her book, Scottsboro Unmasked, where she writes about the role that Decatur, Alabama played in the infamous Scottsboro Boys trial. Hook was written by my good friend and Professor Randall Horton. Hook is the story of transformation. Randall writes about his downward spiral from Howard University undergraduate to homeless, drug addict, international cocaine smuggler, and incarcerated felon before showing the redemptive role that writing and literature has played in his life and helped him to reclaim his life. Sam Hayes was with us, and he talked about his book, Remember Henry Harris, Lost Icon of a Revolution. It was the story of the first African-American athlete at Auburn University and my good friend Henry Harris. Sam is currently writing a book on James Owens, the first African-American football player at Auburn University. Alabama Noir is a collection of Noir film short stories that yours truly contributed to in my short story, Xena, Queen of the Dark. Pat Eddington wrote the screenplay Gulfstream. It's the story of a light-skinned African-American woman in the 1930s who wants to pass for white and the frustration that it leads to in her life. And Daryl Braden, of course, I wrote Identity Crisis. Daryl was our first guest on Tuesdays with Thom. His story as a basketball journeyman who started his career of one of the three players who started the basketball program at the University of Alabama in Birmingham. He has traveled all over the world playing the game that he loved. TK Thorne, you guys remember TK. She drew on her background in law enforcement and strong family association with civil rights. And she wrote Last Chance for Justice, how relentless investigators uncovered new evidence convicting the Birmingham church bombers. Fry Gillard is a writer in residence at the University of South Alabama. Fry wrote A Hard Rain, America in the 1960s, Our Decade of Hope, Possibility, and Innocence Lost. I think Fry will be joining us again at the end of January to talk about his new book. Let's see, Eric Simmons, my good buddy Eric Simmons. Eric wrote a book, The Apple Doesn't Fall from the Tree, about his relationship with his mother and getting your books into libraries. And finally, a book I just bought by Bobby and Cheryl Love, called The Redemption of Bobby Love. It's an unbelievable but true account of a jailbreak 30, 40 years ago. Incredible tension of a life lived in hiding and the triumphant love of two people who have lived extraordinary lives. Good book. You should check it out. The Redemption of Bobby Love. Bobby Love was arrested for robbery. He jumped off the back of a bus, taking him to prison, and married and was happily married for 35 years before the police knocked on his door one day and reminded him that he had broken out of prison. Um, Finally, IATSE, the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, and the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers reached an agreement to avert a strike of 60,000 members. The IATSE represents film and motion picture crew members, including off-camera talent, sound and light technicians, camera operators, makeup artists, among others. Outside of the two main production centers of New York and Los Angeles, hubs in Georgia, New Mexico, and Colorado would also have been impacted. It is the first such action taken by members in the 128-year history of the group. And I'm glad that everything has worked out so far. It still has to be ratified, but I have a lot of friends involved in that union, and I'm just glad that they're worked it out and they're going to get back to work. Again, today's G-List guest is Larry Thornton, a good friend of mine. Larry is an entrepreneur, an artist, and an author. And today we'll discuss his book, Why Not Win. The G-List is sponsored by Mainstream Financial Group. Mainstream Financial brings financial vision and clarity to your retirement plans. Talk to the folks at Mainstream Financial and don't let your money run out before you do. This edition of Tuesday with Thom, of course, is sponsored by our partners, the Best Girl Consulting Firm. Who and what is Best Girl? Well, we will let the voice tell you.
Best Girl is a consulting firm that provides customized leadership, access and inclusion, public relations, communications, and organizational consulting services. Clients include Fortune 500 companies, utilities, higher education institutions, small businesses, and associations. Best Girl's team of consultants, led by Joyce Gilly-Gossam, Emily Hedrick, and Sean Jones, partners with business and education clients to promote organizational effectiveness, communication, motivation, and leadership, with always an impact on the bottom line. Best Girl's customized consulting services include strategic planning, corporate communication, executive coaching, fundraising, and economic development.
The solution that fits your needs. I'd like to give a shout out this morning to Vernell Razor. Vernell, we contacted the lady you recommended to be a guest on TWT. We're probably going to try and bring her on in the spring, which is closer to the day that they will have the run for Black Lives Matter that she is sponsoring. So just letting you know we got that. We thank you very, very much. So let's go to our roundtable regulars and introduce Barbara Wallace Edwards and Michael Walker. Barbara Wallace Edwards is a Mobile, Alabama native, currently living in Birmingham. I don't know where she is today. She gets around a good little bit. Good morning, Barbara.
Good morning, Thom. How are you today?
I'm doing just fine. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. And I'm actually in Birmingham today, believe it or
Are
not.
you?
Yeah, I am.
Whoa, what's wrong? Something must be wrong.
Well, I was out of town for the weekend, but I'm back.
Oh,
I'm
good.
back in town now, and we'll
Okay.
probably be heading out again this weekend. So I do stay on the go. But
Good for you. Good for
yes,
you. Just be careful out there.
I
So
certainly
what's
am.
happening in your world?
Well, Thom, I want to remind all our viewers that we're a little over 60 days away from Christmas, believe it or not. You know,
Wow.
fall weather is here, so that's always a good reminder that Christmas is soon to follow. And with the supply chain issues that are out there right now, you know, they're warning that the shelves are empty in the stores. So all of our viewers need to go ahead and get their Christmas shopping done if they're planning to do any. Probably online is the best choice right now. Myself, I'm going to cut down on my Christmas list this year and probably not do as much shopping as I normally do. So those that are, I will remind them to go ahead and get their shopping done.
Well, I don't. It isn't for Christmas, but we've been in line. We placed an order for a new oven that was supposed to be here in August, and now they say it may be here in December.
Oh,
So we
it's
will just
terrible.
keep waiting.
I've talked to several people who've ordered furniture, who are moving into new homes or building new homes, and furniture and just building supplies, everything. There's a shortage of everything right now. So again, you're right. It's not just Christmas items. Anything that you're in need of, don't wait till the last minute to place your orders. It's taking a while.
Well, I think, and I'll just kind of reverse a little bit and say, I think we can save ourselves a lot of anxiety by recognizing that we are still in this situation and that
Absolutely.
it will not be as efficient as it has been.
Right.
And it's just kind of the way the world is right now.
So true.
Let me get Michael Walker in here. Michael Walker, how are you, man? What's going on with you?
Well, good morning, Thom. Good morning, Barbara. I am doing well. I hope the two of you are also doing well.
So what's happening in your world, Michael?
Well, I got a couple things I like to share with our listeners and viewers. You know, Aflac, the duck, and now you see the duck with Nick Saban and prime time, Coach Sanders. Well, they did a survey and they found that nearly half of the workers added at least one health benefit due to COVID-19 this year. And they say over 44% added one. And here's the breakdown. Life insurance was one of the main added benefits that people added due to COVID-19. Whereas before, and you know, in a lot of minority communities, minorities really don't understand the value of life insurance, but COVID had brought that to a realization right now. Also, hospital indemnity was also purchased. Critical illness. For those of you that don't know critical illness, Aflac, they are a supplemental insurance company and they specialize in critical illness policies, such as getting cancer or having a heart attack or stroke, where you get support there. And a new one, which is mental health services. People are purchasing that now. So those are the four areas that have seen an upsurge in healthcare benefits and purchases due to COVID. And the other thing I like to share with you, and hopefully this will not come to the US, but up in Canada, an untold number of people ended up in the ICU after attending a COVID party. The idea was to have a COVID party to try to create what they call natural immunity or herd immunity. And as a result, they went there purposely now to contract COVID so they could develop their own immunity naturally. And a lot of them ended up in ICU. And this was in the Canadian province of Alberta, Canada. Now, they're saying that that idea actually maybe stemmed from back when chickenpox was a plague and parents would purposely usher their children into a gathering around other people with chickenpox so that you could naturally overcome it. But the difference is, one, there was no vaccines back then. And it's still not thought to be a good idea to purposely go and try to get one of these diseases. But they're thinking that that was what they were trying to emulate, was doing that. And everybody that is a medical professional is urging people, please do not do that.
And Michael, I think it's actually been in the US for a little while. I understand that on a lot of college campuses, they were doing that back in the fall. That a lot of the fraternities and sororities were even hosting COVID parties to try to expose themselves to COVID and hopefully develop the herd immunity situation. And several of those individuals did end up in ICU units at hospitals. So it may have already arrived here, and hopefully it's dwindled away.
Oh,
yeah. You know, Dr. Fauci warned that we could have a fifth surge if people do not adhere to vaccinations and moving in that direction. And he's urging people to please get vaccinated. There's still 66 million people that are unvaccinated here in the US that should be vaccinated. And Thom mentioned Colin Powell. and news stories are leading that he was vaccinated. But you have to peel back the onion. Unfortunately, he suffered from multiple myeloma, which is a blood cancer, and also he had Parkinson. So it's believed that because of his cancer and the treatment, that made it very difficult for him to build up his immune system from his COVID vaccination. So just because you hear a lead story that he was fully vaccinated, do not automatically think that you should not get vaccinated. He had other compromising situations that contributed to his demise.
Cam's gotten vaccinated. I guess he needs to play for somebody again.
He has. Cam says he has several offers on the table too. So
yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. I wonder who they're from.
I don't know.
I hope he can get back. And I saw where the coach at Washington State lost his job because he refused to get vaccinated.
That's
and
true.
He pretty much, my understanding is he didn't, and he wouldn't say why he refused to get vaccinated.
Yeah, I heard 4 assistants also.
Yeah, they got rid of him as well.
4 assistants, yes.
But it's a mandate from the state,
yes,
isn't it? And he's a state employee. So
right.
I don't know. Who knows? Let me back to Cam for a minute. You think Cam will play again somewhere?
I do think he will. Michael, you're more of an expert on this topic than I am, but what are your thoughts? I'm curious myself.
Well, I'm torn. I think he should, but I kind of doubt it. In my opinion, I think Cam has been blackballed.
For what reason?
Several reasons. 1, his personality. 2, the way he dressed. And then the fact of this COVID situation. It's interesting how, and I just kind of watch things. It's interesting how, Cam was like maybe a unicorn, so to speak. He was the first quarterback of his size to do all the things he did. And because he was Superman, he built himself as Superman and all of that type of stuff. It was like he was punished for doing that. But I noticed that now, take, for instance, the quarterback of Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen. I heard last night they're talking about how big he is and how he runs and throws, and he's Cam Newton-esque. For certain people, that's okay.
Right.
But for Cam, that was a problem. That was an issue. Everybody were coming down on him. And I said to Thom one time, I thought NFL as professional sports was really entertainment.
Right.
So they always say, well, Cam is not acting appropriate. But now it's okay for other players. There's a player on the Braves baseball team that wears pearl necklaces. His name is Jock Peterson. They've called him Jocktober now. And they talking about his swag. But when Cam had a swag, there was something wrong with it. But when certain other people come through and have that swag, it's okay. So, no, I don't really think Cam will be back.
I think when you're the first, there's always a more serious consequence.
Yes.
And now, Jalen Hurts ran a touchdown and pulled his shirt back and said that he did it because he admired Cam. He wanted to be like Cam.
Yes.
I don't know. That probably has some validity to it. This whole thing about taunting. You tackle somebody, you stand over them, and you do something, then they call a penalty on you.
Right.
So that at one time the NFL was no fun league, and I think that's when Cam came along. You didn't have a guy who was the face of the franchise doing the things that Cam was doing.
Right.
And now the game has changed. You look at these running quarterbacks, which they tried to stay away from for so long. It's interesting. So let me ask you guys another question, sort of similar to that. Do you think John Gruden will coach again? And before you answer, I saw the other day on Keyshawn, Jay Will, and Max. That show comes on way too early in the morning. That they brought Feinbaum on, of all people, and asked him if he thought that Gruden would coach again, and he said no. He didn't think Gruden certainly wouldn't coach in college, and probably wouldn't coach would coach in the pros, and maybe even a college wouldn't take a chance on him. What do you guys think? You think Gruden will coach? You think in 4 or 5 years some college will say, okay, well, they've forgotten now. Let's go out here and hire Gruden again.
Yeah, I think someone's going to give him an opportunity. They're going to say that was just a mistake. It happened, 10, 11 years ago, and he needs another opportunity. Whereas, like you said, someone like Cam probably wouldn't get that same type of opportunity. So I don't think he should, but I think he will return to coaching.
Michael?
I concur. Plain and simple, I think his opportunities or the percentage of him getting rehired somewhere as a football coach are far greater than Cam getting an opportunity to play quarterback. Just my opinion. I could be wrong, but I think, like Barbara said, that'll be forgiven, and he'll be given a second opportunity. Not everybody's afforded the same forgiveness,
you and I
unfortunately.
That's true. You and I mentioned that of all these emails, Gruden's emails were, I don't know what the number was, but this was like thousands of emails, and they picked these few out. And one of the guys on the talk show said that they thought that they were out to get Gruden. Somebody was out to get Gruden. And well, we know Keyshawn Johnson didn't like him. And there was always a little bit of, and I don't know what I want to call it, but a little bit of an issue with the fact that he took Tony Dungy was fired. He built that team in Tampa, and then Gruden came in and got it and won the championship. So there was an edge to that. So I don't know. Go ahead.
But do you blame Gruden for that, or do you blame the Glazers, the owners? That's who did it.
Yeah, exactly. And that guy, what Bruce Allen there at the time as well? The guy he was sending the emails to?
I think so.
Yeah,
he may have been. I don't know.
I think he was. Anyway, I don't know, man. Y'all just be careful with your emails. If you say something ugly about me, somebody's gonna tell me. So
what Herm Edwards said, don't press send.
Don't even type it.
Yeah, Herm Edwards said, don't press send.
You know what? I will say this. If I have to send something to somebody and maybe it's something that, I like to think about before I never send it that day. I always wait till the next morning.
Right.
It's like, okay, now I've had time to think about it. Do I really want to say this? Is it worth the trouble? What have you? And,
right.
I don't know.
They always say if you're angry when you're writing something out or you want to send something, write it out first and by hand before you actually type it in, and then reread it, an hour later, and do I really want to say that? Do I really feel that way?
Well, what I'll do is type it in, but I won't put an addressee up there. I won't put the person's name so I can't accidentally send it.
Send it anywhere. That's very smart.
Because every now and then you'll hit something, you're like, oh man, I didn't want to say that.
In many cases, though, it's a reply situation, so the name's already up there.
Yeah.
So you best not even type that in, because you can easily hit send. And sometimes it's a group of people. You only need to send it to one person, but there may be someone that was blind copied or something. You don't know who you're sending it to. You have to be very careful.
Oh man, I hate it when you get a group of people, and there's 20, 30 people, and then everybody's got to reply all. And it's
yes.
Oh man, come on. Anyway, anything else? We're going to move on to the G list now. The G list is where everybody is a star. Is sponsored by Mainstream Financial Group. Let's go to hear what Mainstream says this morning. Emily?
Mainstream Financial Group provides financial services for both individuals and businesses. Mainstream's mission is to understand the unique needs of every client and work closely with you, assembling a team to develop and manage your resources to help you accomplish your defined financial goals. Mainstream financial professionals will provide you with a complimentary, no obligation financial review. Now, these professionals can then offer you custom advice to mend together the pieces of your financial life and come up with a plan that is truly comprehensive. Mainstream Financial assists retirees and those close to retirement in planning for a secure retirement so not to run out of money during your lifetime. You can take advantage of opportunities with tailored advice and the resources to act on it. Mainstream Financial Group, www.mainstreamfg.com, 205-324-0589.
Mainstream Financial Group provides financial vision and clarity. So let's get to the G list. Remember, Hollywood has the A list, and here on Tuesdays with Thom, we have the G list where everybody is a star. Today's G list guest is Larry Thornton, artist, entrepreneur, author, servant leader. Just a few words that describe Larry D. Thornton Sr. You can also call him a father, a grandfather, a game changer, a teacher, and a team player. Even though there are many words to describe Larry's prowess, leadership, hearing his life story puts everything in perspective. Larry established himself as an author with the release of his book, Why Not Win, a reflection on his 50-year journey from the segregated South to America's boardrooms and what it teaches us all. Good morning, Mr. Thornton.
Good morning, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing just great. How are you doing this
Great.
morning?
I have thoroughly enjoyed the presentation. You, Barbara, Michael, just awesome. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Well, thank you, man. Thank you. So how are you? Tell me what's happening with you.
Well, you know what? I gotta comment on this line first because it's so significant that we all need to pay attention. Don't let your money run out before you do. You said that earlier, and I'm thinking, how cool is that? And we all need to give some thought to that. And Barbara, I guess Sunday I got back from Tucson, and we were with a international geopolitical strategist, Peter Zian, and he said that this thing with the delayed deliveries is going to be with us for at least another year or so. And to Michael, I just wanted to say, in regard or respect to Colin Powell, what a great American hero he was. I am chairing, we're closing in on our goal right now, $450,000 goal. I'm chairing the leukemia lymphoma campaign this year. And, but more than that, trying to raise awareness around leukemia and lymphoma in the Black community. So having fun with that too, Thom.
Well, there are several things we can talk about, and I know Michael and Barbara, but let me just ask you, I remember when you got your first McDonald's. And
yeah.
You and I were real close, and we would talk. So tell us about the business and how it's been since, what was it, 92 when you started?
1992 with the first site.
When you say 1992, it's hard to believe. Yeah, that was what is that? How many years
Almost
ago?
30, just under 30 years ago, man. Yeah, right. They're talking to me about a succession plan now, and I'm thinking, wow, for us, we tiptoe around. This is on air, so we can't say certain things. But for us, it's so hard to get in and then to stay in. And then to get out. But my son is in the business too, Thom. He went to Miles College, graduated, went right into the owner's program, and became the youngest franchisee owner within our system at 25 years old. I mean, that's pretty cool. 25 years old to be able to say that I do not manage, I do not supervise, but I own a $2.6 million facility. And he is just by far the finest young man that you'd ever want to meet. And I love my boy and love working with him every day.
That's great, man. That's really good. So does he manage all seven? Are you CEO?
Pretty much so. He's kind of moving in that direction. In fact, the last 3 stores we bought simultaneously, maybe 7 or 8 months ago. And it was interesting, Thom. I'm sitting down with my director of operations, Tracy Twyman, who's been with me for about 22 years, just an operations expert. And I said, Tracy down and my son, and I had my book in my hand. I said, now, guys, let's be clear. If we decide to take these 3 stores, let's be clear. This is more about y'all than it is me, because I'm going to be playing with my book, okay? And that's exactly what we've been doing. But they are more than up to the task. We have 7 units now, and they do a great job of keeping them, with the exception of trying to find employees. That's our biggest challenge today.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. It really is. I was gonna ask you. You said that a succession plan, which hints that maybe you'll look to retire one day. Well, what are you going to do about all this other stuff you do? You going to retire from it too? You going to retire from writing books and your art and everything else that you do?
It's funny that you should say that, and you'll love this. So I'm in one of my restaurants, and I'm signing a book for someone. So one of my employees came up to me and she said, Mr. Thornton, you wrote a book? I said, yeah, it's pretty cool, huh? And she said, they said that those drawings out in the lobby that you did that artwork. Is that right? I said, yeah, pretty cool. And you own this store? I said, yeah. Here's what she said, Thom. She said, Mr. Thornton, why you have to be so extra? And Thom, I didn't have an answer for her, but I'll put it to you. I'll put it to Michael. I'll put it to Barbara. Why y'all have to be so extra? I mean, Thom, you're an actor, you're a consultant, you're a facilitator. Now you got why don't you just go and sit down somewhere, man? Why you got to be so extra?
I hope to one day.
No.
Well, this guy asked me, he said, well, when are you going to retire? I said,
yeah,
what?
Right. And do what?
What am I going to do,
No such thing. And I don't mind telling you, I love it when people kind of, you can see them kind of, retracting and pulling away from the push and pull of life. But I'm also excited to see those individuals, Thom, who are constantly looking for the next chapter in their lives. I think that differentiates being alive and living.
I agree.
The gentleman whose store I trained in to become a McDonald's franchisee, I met with him, Thom, 3 weeks before he died in his office. And he died at 99 years old. That's my man. That's who I plan to mimic. So I'm going to keep on being extra, my friend.
keep being extra. Let me do this, because I know Michael and Barbara want to ask you some questions.
Sure.
And you've got McDonald's. You talk about your art. You can talk about your book. We can talk about PCL.
Yep.
What would you like to address now before I go to them? Because there's so much we got to try and get in. But
absolutely.
You lead me where you want to go.
Well, I'd like to re-emphasize, if you will, for the benefit of the listeners. I'll just say that, life is interesting, but only to interesting people. You ever think about that? Life is exciting, but only to exciting people. So be interested. Get excited about something. Life is dull, boring, lugubrious, but only to dull, boring, and lugubrious people. It is also true, Thom, that life is successful, but only to successful people. So we paint our world. I'm an artist, so I love speaking in that vernacular, but we paint our world, and how we wish that our kids and our grandkids could understand that it's you. It's you.
I agree with you. As a matter of fact, I have your artwork on my office wall here, the Martin Luther King drawing you did for me back in 1998, 1988. Yeah. When we were in Project Corporate Leadership.
Yeah, I remember.
And that was just a wonderful, wonderful program. And of course, you were one of the leaders in that program, and I certainly appreciate what you did. So I tell you what, let me get Michael and Barbara on here,
sure,
and then we'll come back in just a second. So Barbara Wallace Edwards, you got some questions for Mr. Thornton here.
Hey, Barbara.
I do. Good morning, Larry. How are you this morning?
Always good to see you.
He's real extra this morning. He's real
extra.
And I love that he's being extra. We're going to keep on being extra. Is that
there
right?
You go.
It's my plan. That's my plan. Let's do it.
Absolutely. I want to ask you, my first question is, I think you may have started your career as a high school art teacher. Is that correct? In 1975?
That is correct.
At
Wow.
Vestavia High School. Tell us about that. How long were you an educator?
Well, I was recruited right out of Alabama State. Not that I was so brilliant, Michael, but it was because they were trying to keep federal dollars in place. And I had two very qualified art teachers right there at the interview, but they chose a brother. So I started there in 75 and thoroughly enjoyed that. Teachers, once you get into the book, Thom, shaped my life. My second grade teacher was an artist, and that's when I connected that I had some art talent. And my senior English teacher, that was a story in and of itself. But taught there for 4 years. All I ever wanted to do was to be an instructor barber. I would have been fine to do that all of my life, but the state had other plans. So they prorated education, and I lost my job along with 8 of us, nothing personal. But, I had no place for that in my psyche, Barbara. How do you lose a job and you hadn't created an offense?
Right.
Is that a thing? And I think that that's when the entrepreneurial bug bit me, and I started down the road. Most of life is about getting started. Get started, take the first step. And then serendipity kicks in, the universe kicks in. And if you've invested well into the universe, kindness, forgiveness, honesty, integrity, all of those things, there's a compounding return. And that's kind of been the story of my life. So I taught until 79, and I wasn't going to work for anybody else. It's just like, hey, I'm going to do my thing. So I'm painting signs, don't really know how to paint signs, but that's where the money was.
Right.
A portrait like the one you have on your wall, Thom, I might do a portrait of someone and, maybe $150, they'd look at me funny, whereas I could go and letter a standard furniture truck for $640, so that's what the dollars were. So I ended up going to Coca-Cola, came across this sign, but I'm not going to work. I'm just kind of going there to learn how to paint signs. And I get to Coca-Cola, Thom. Nobody can paint a sign as well as I can paint a sign. So within, 4 or 5 months, I'm promoted to advertising manager. But I want to say this piece because we talked about interesting. Anything that I do, I've always tried to be excited and interested in it. So I called Luke Cranford, who taught both of his girls at Vestavia High School, relationship. Hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about the value of good, lasting relationships. This man hired me over the phone, $5 an hour, into the sign shop. And then, of course, I ended up becoming advertising manager, but only wanted to be there for about 6 months to learn the craft. But then, Thom, the company car came. So, it's pretty good with a car phone, Barbara and Michael might be too young to know what a car phone is.
Oh, no, we remember. Believe me.
I said, but I'm not getting comfortable here. These folk are going to terminate me. And then you move on and, you get your business cards and all. And, things were happening. So once I started with McDonald's, I'm certain that I'm leaving. And they refused to accept my resignation. But the fact of the matter is that I have been leaving Coca-Cola for 42 years, and I have not left yet. How cool is that?
That's real cool.
That's
From $5 an hour to now serving on the board of directors of the largest independent bottler in the nation. We are over 10,000 associates now, and having a ball with that, and chair the audit committee. An artist.
Wow.
All because I decided to continue to be extra.
Because you're extra. Yeah, absolutely.
That's interesting. That's great. You think about it, and you think about some of the things you get to do. And I'm very similar in a lot of ways.
Of course.
Football player. And I remember this guy. Remember when I stopped, this guy came to my office one day, and he looked all around and he said, "Did you play football?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "There's nothing in here that says you play football." I said, "I don't play football anymore."
That's right.
So, how cool is that?
I'm a business guy now. So, Michael, go ahead, man.
Yes, Larry, thank you for being with us. I'm so excited to talk with you.
Yes, sir.
Ask you a question, and you caused me to change my questioning format by a couple comments.
Okay.
But you made a comment about your difficulty in getting help at your McDonald's. And I wanted to ask you about your position. We have this immigration issue in America, and we all saw it, the Haitians being turned away and all of this. These people are just trying to get to U.S. for a better life. Why can't we in America give them a temporary visa, bring them in, and let them go to work to do some of these jobs that people like yourself are having problems getting?
Absolutely. Makes all the sense in the world. And we can even go back a little bit to E-Verify, if you're familiar with that term at all.
Yes.
We lost all kind of employees as a result of E-Verify. To me, these are hardworking, not to mention that this is how our country was founded, you know, but that's a different conversation. But we've lost all kind of employees. But to look at what's happening in Haiti and these individuals who want to come and do the work that so many Americans choose for whatever reason not to do. But my Spanish-speaking employees now, such a great job. And when I looked at that, it's interesting you should say that. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, as much as we need jobs, not just in the restaurant business, but in America, period.
Right.
You know, but sometimes 2 + 2 just doesn't equal 4 to some of our politicians. And, you know, there you have it. There you have it.
Yeah.
Great point, though. I love that.
We were talking yesterday about the, you know, people are saying that people don't want to go to work because they were getting, what was it, $300 a month, $300 a week, whatever
Something like
it
that.
was, whatever. And so this guy, he said, man, they don't want to work because they're getting this free money. I said, but you're a business owner, right? He said, yeah. I said, did you get a PPP loan?
Right.
He said, yeah. I said, did you get it forgiven? He said, yeah. So what's the difference?
Right.
You know,
exactly.
You got free money.
Right.
That's what they want, just what
Right.
you got. And it's amazing how we see it differently based
Thom,
on semantics.
Thom,
Yes.
you're so right. We have fared well through this entire pandemic. We've not been down a single day in terms of over the entirety of this event. We've been down in transaction counts, what we call TCs, but up exponentially in carry out, Uber Eats and Grubhub and Postmates and that thing. The idea that somebody would want to buy $35, $40 worth of McDonald's food and carry it because our food it just doesn't do well when it's being moved. It's meant for immediate consumption, but all of that is up. So our business kind of held up pretty good.
Okay.
My next question or follow-up question, well, I have a couple of them.
Okay.
But, you know, I admire what you've done, and you may want to say you stumbled across it, but in the back of your mind, you always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I wonder what your mentality was when you started, because I started my first business when I was 28 years old. And just the other day, I was in the gym and a young guy asked me, what did I do? Why was I in the gym during the middle of the day and then I leave? What did I do for a living that afforded me that opportunity?
Absolutely.
So I was telling him what I was doing, that I was in business and I own my own insurance agency. And he said, well, what advice would you give me to start my own business? And I said, well, the first thing I would tell you is do not listen to anybody who have never done it. Go and talk to somebody who has done what you're trying to do and learn from them. And don't waste your time listening to people to tell you how not to do it. You strike me as a person that pretty much did the same thing.
I'd agree with that. And that's such great advice to the gentleman who asked the question. You know, understanding in my mind the difference between responsibility and opportunity. Recognize the opportunity. That's the void. That's the miss. Most people probably wouldn't be on the job if they were not responsible. They met the criteria to be responsible. But what we miss, Michael, more than anything is the opportunity. which borders on gratitude, if you will. I remember working at Coca-Cola, $5 an hour, as I said, and then I'm transferred into a management position. My boss showed up, Barbara, with a box of business cards. And I picked up one of those cards, Thom, and I saw Larry Thornton, my name, next to the most recognized trademark in the world. You know, recognizing the opportunity. Every department head had business cards, I suppose, but who saw the opportunity that afforded? Not just at Coca-Cola. I would take that card and get private sign work because I wasn't planning to be at Coca-Cola for very long. Mm-hmm. So recognizing the opportunity is so significant. And I can't tell you the number of people who miss their end for no other reason than they do not recognize the opportunity. If you're looking at the clock at 10 o'clock in the morning and you're thinking, my God, I've got 6 more hours to go. Oh,
you're in the wrong job.
Yes,
man.
you are. You're working for the wrong people.
Work to get to a position where you look at the clock at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and you say, oh my God, it's 2 o'clock already.
Yeah.
I haven't done half the things that I want. And that's the difference. Opportunity, that's where opportunity takes you. But if you don't recognize that, I think we miss our end far, far, far too often.
Yes.
But getting started.
Yes.
And I think when you have an entrepreneurial mentality, it affords you more opportunity because you see things that others don't.
Yeah.
When I worked at Bell South for 9 years, and I was a fair-haired boy. I was going to be, one of the muckety mucks at some point.
Oh yeah, same
but
here.
I didn't want to be that. I wanted to be president of my thing, or whatever that was. When you went to the bank back then, you went to the bank with a Bell South check. And sometimes when we go to the bank as people of color, they not only want to see your ID, they want to know when you were born and blah, 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 blah. And I said to myself, I said, you know what? I'm going to come to this bank with a Thom Gossam check, and I'm going to get the same respect I get when I go there with a Bell South check.
Wow. How cool is that?
And you find a way to get it done. I ended up leaving, but I ended up working for them for the next 13 years as a consultant.
Yep.
Yes.
And so it worked out. And they were able to see the wisdom in it.
Yes.
And I was able to see the wisdom in it, because I loved working for them, but I knew if I didn't leave at that point, I would never get the chance to.
Yes.
Thom, I can't believe that I've not heard that story. Once you're in Birmingham again, or it'd be worth it for me to get to Florida. We're trying to develop a relationship now with, let's see, what is it? University of Tampa. So I might pass by you coming, because I'd like to hear more about that. That is so identical until you leave. When I went in to turn in my resignation because I've got the first offer for my restaurant, first of all, the gentleman said, well, what would it take for you to forget about this McDonald's thing? Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
And so I said, so Thom, I take my violin out and I said, well, nobody in my family has ever done anything like this before. I got to go and try. So then, Michael, he said, because the whole point was to keep you with that. Then he said, well, can you stay on with us? And to your exact point, I became a consultant of sorts with Coca-Cola. I have not missed a check from Coca-Cola today in 42 years.
Wow.
Been leaving for all of that length of time. So it's just interesting, but we have to leave. And you can't say this. I want us to be very careful with this one. It's not meant for everybody. I think you alluded to that, Michael.
No,
so I'm careful when I talk to people, but if you've got the spirit, if you have the wherewithal, I literally believe it to be blasphemous for us to have the capacity to do, and then we choose to stay with a 9 to 5. That's the issue. And so I'm so proud to be among the three of you, because you get that, you understand that we have to do this for more than us.
Yeah.
Larry, you say something interesting. I think it's in your book. It's that the game has been scheduled, so we have to play. Why not win at
Why
it?
not win?
Yes,
Why
I
not
love that. I
win?
love that.
You
Why
know?
don't you talk about the book for a little bit before we run out of time here?
Yeah, I know we'll run out of time, but I did want to visit real quickly. We talked about communication skills, relationship skills, demeanor, deportment, disposition. When I go to the inner city schools now to speak, I'm not talking about what you want to be when you grow up. You know, Thom, you might have wanted to play for the NFL, but look at all of the myriad of things that you're doing today. You know, it's about good relationship skills,
Yeah,
communication skills, demeanor, you know, and working hard on yourself. That's another piece that we miss more than anything. Work hard on yourself. So I simply wanted to, when I decided to do this book, you know, I've only lived, Thom, unlike you, I've only lived in Montgomery and Birmingham all of my life. So as I looked around, I in the South, you don't see a lot of folk, African Americans, who have been able to penetrate the corporate structure, such as my story. So I simply wanted to capture those rudiments of thinking, those processes of thinking that led to this winning opportunity, just to kind of capture those lessons. And that's what this book has done. Asked Dr. Fluker, she's doctor now, she wasn't at the time, but she wrote the introduction to the book. And when she comes back to me, she says, Larry, I've read the manuscript. She's in higher education. And she said, but I got to tell you, we've got something here. And I'm thinking, okay, what you got? She said, I have extracted over 100 quotes from this book. And she has gone ahead and she's written a curriculum from this book.
Oh, wow.
And it's just the most amazing thing. We've been on over 30 college campuses presenting the messaging lessons like winning communications, of course, winning relationship, You Inc. I mean, what if everybody understood that he or she was in business for him or herself? You know, if you understood that, you know, then you think differently. Thom, you said it a moment ago, you think differently. So we're having the greatest time with that. And I'll say this as well, Barbara, which I'm still trying to digest this. There are 7 universities, let's see, Wilberforce University, Russ College, Central State University, Miles College, Fort Valley State University, East Tennessee State University, and we think Tampa have all adopted this book as a common read mandate for credit.
That's
and I'm thinking,
yes.
Is that not too cool?
That is so cool.
What a legacy. And I'm looking to fly into each of these locations. So Thom, if you see me the next time and I've got a smoking jacket and a pipe and I've grown a beard, you'll say, you know, Larry's going to show up Ernest Hemingway style. But, you know, and even to this day on the book, I cannot get accustomed to people referencing me as an author. I've been calling artist all of my life, but author, I'm kind of getting there. But just having fun with this book. Why not win?
Yes.
Yeah, I hear you. So we got one final comment from you guys.
Well, yes.
Quickly,
I'd just like to say, of course, congratulations on all your accomplishments. It's been very inspiring to speak with you.
Thank you.
You brought up a point, which was another question I wanted to ask, and I'll be brief with it. Being on the corporate boards and being able to penetrate that area that not many of us have.
Yep.
What have you learned, or what was something that was an awakening to you once you became immersed on those corporate boards that the rest of us may need to know?
I'll go back to those 5 points. Working hard on yourself, more so than you do on any job. Self-improvement. When you improve you, everybody gets a better you. So as I'm looking on the boards, I don't see any reason why, from what I can see and hear on this conversation, anybody on this call shouldn't be on a corporate board. Now, within our community, so many people do not understand the difference in being on the board of directors of AG Gas and Boys and Girls Club and being on the board of directors of Coca-Cola, where you are privy to stock options and purchasing and to watch the stock grow from $221 when I started. I know we're running out of time. And today that same individual stock is worth $3,700. You know, having opportunities to do that. What we've got to do, we have 2 blacks on our board today, only because I'm pulling the chair up to the chairman saying, if we're going to buy the Atlanta market, we should consider an African-American out of that market. Let me get you a few names. And it's that kind of thing. And so with the book, I think that those lessons are captured. One thing that I've said, we're out of time, but one thing that I say often, if you can't take anything, you can't have anything. Do you know that so many of my colleagues have missed their end because they couldn't take the BS? And there's a lot of BS. We'd like to think that we have grown out of the BS, that our ancestors took all of the BS that needed to be taken. Well, Barbara, that's not true. We have our little share to take too. And why do I take the BS? So that my son can be 25 and to see him get out of the rehab. We had some blood clotting issues and the lady just kept Thom insisting, you got to have this excuse to return to work. You got to have, he says, no, I'm fine. I don't need, you won't be able to go back to work. And it was just funny to hear that because she couldn't get in her mind that you can be in the gym in the middle of the day, you're working out, working on myself because I've got my own thing. So that's the basis and the premise of that. We got to be able to take it. If you can't take it, you just can't make it. Wow.
Yes. That's wonderful, man. That's great advice. We're going to get together when I come to Birmingham. You know,
I love it.
I've been out here now. I always say out here when I describe what I do.
Out here.
I've been out here now since 1987. And, you know, you start to look at it. You don't know exactly where you're going, but you know you're going. And when it's on my wall, the cover of 1986 Esquire magazine, it says, "What are you doing with the rest of your life?" And when I saw that was during the Christmas break. It was December.
How
when
cool
we
is
went
that?
back to work in January, I went to my boss and I sat down and told him that I wanted to leave. And it took 6 months before they would agree because they wanted to talk me out of it. But you know what? He's still my good friend.
Great.
Like I said, I worked with him for the next 13 years.
Right.
And it's just been Larry, I got to tell you this. My wife said to tell you that she worked with you at one of your first restaurants.
How about that?
Joyce Gilly at that time.
Yeah, that would have been heritage. Yeah. I gotta say this to Mike. Mike, here's what the guy said to me also, Michael, when we said, well, what would it take for you to stay here? And I can't remember. It was a nice offer though. And I wanted him to know this because just like in Thom's situation, then you recognize the value that it's about to leave. So he said, and I had to tell him, I said, Claude, I have to tell you this, 1/3 of what you've just offered me would have made me a happy camper 3 years ago, you know, but so do right.
Right.
Do right. And maybe I'd still be at Coca-Cola being one of those muckety mucks, but I'm glad that I'm where I am today, Thom.
Absolutely.
This has been great. This has been great.
I am as well. Thank you so much, Larry. We will get together.
Absolutely.
I promise. I'd love to just share some stories with you.
Well, let's please do that, my friend.
A lot in common.
Great.
Thank you so much, man. We appreciate it, Larry.
Absolutely.
So my closing commentary this morning, or as I see it, is to ask, what in the world's going on? What's with all the anger? And I don't know if all of it is anger, but it seems some people these days just need an excuse to act out, be crazy, be offensive to others. Perfect example is that Tennessee Ole Miss football game last Saturday. Tennessee fans did not like the officials' call on a review, and they started throwing what was described as a barrage of trash onto the field. Trash included water bottles, vape pens, golf balls, and even a bottle of mustard. The Tennessee band and cheerleaders dance team ran for cover. The players were instructed to keep their helmets on, move into the middle of the field. Play was suspended for nearly 20 minutes. What I will say, come on, anger or fake anger always seems to be right at the surface these days. So what I will say is chill out. It's just a football game. They'll play it again next year, believe me. And that's how I see it for this Tuesday, October 19th in the year 2021. That's our show for today. I want to thank the audience. We appreciate all of you for being with us. Thank you very much. Thank Michael. Thank Barbara. Thank our G-list guest, Larry Thornton. It's good to catch up with him. Our upcoming G-list guest on Tuesday with Thom is doctoral student Crystal Harrell. Crystal has got a great story that I think you all will really enjoy. And then Alabama High School Athletic Association Executive Director Alvin Briggs, who's the first Black executive director of the Alabama High School Athletic Association. I want to thank our sponsors, Best Girl Inc. and Mainstream Financial Group. You know somebody who you think would make a great guest, please refer them to us at Thom at Best Girl or Emily at Best Girl. And I thank Vernell Razor again for referring that young lady to us. Remember to enjoy yourself, okay? Make every day count. Stay safe. Peace.